I thought I'd seen every dirty trick an HOA could pull. The petty fines, the endless warnings, the gossip, but nothing prepared me for the day our HOA president pointed a gun at my wife. Point 1 second, she was trimming our hedges. The next, Karen was screaming about community rules, hands shaking around cold steel. What? She didn't know what made her pick the wrong target was that my wife wasn't just another homeowner. She was the commander of the U.S. Secret Service Presidential Detail, and that day, she reminded everyone what real authority looks like. When we moved into Willow Creek Estates, it looked like paradise, trimmed lawns, white fences, and neighbors waving like clockwork. Dana, my wife, had just retired from the Secret Service after years of protecting the president. She wanted quiet mornings, sunlight, and peace, not briefings, not security sweeps that we thought we found it here, but peace, I've learned, doesn't last long when power-hungry people feel threatened. Our HOA president, Marlene Whitmore, or as everyone called her, Karen, was the self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac. She didn't just enforce the rules, she lived for them. The first letter came a week after we moved in. Your lawn is 1 inch too high. Then another, unauthorized lighting, 2 solar path lights. That's all it took to make us criminals. In her book, each notice came signed in her looping handwriting, bold, proud, territorial. At first, we laughed it off, but by the fourth letter, the tone had changed. Words like violation, disciplinary hearing, and property infraction filled the page. Dana stayed calm and composed, the same calm she had when facing threats. Far worse than suburban politics. But I could see it, the way she studied the letters, the way her eyes narrowed. Something about this wasn't just petty. It was calculated, and soon, it became personal. It began with the cameras. Dana spotted one, mounted on the streetlight, facing our home, tiny black, and aimed directly at our windows. When she asked, Marlene called it for neighborhood safety. That a week later, another appeared. Then another. We checked our own footage and saw Marlene pacing outside at midnight, flashlight in one hand, clipboard in the other. When we filed a complaint, the board shrugged, because the board was Marlene. Our mail started arriving. Torn trash bins were marked with fluorescent tape. Neighbors stopped waving that we were being isolated, and Dana knew exactly what that meant. She began logging everything, every notice, every photo, every late-night visit. 48 pages of evidence. In no emotion, just facts. Then came the community safety mandate. A new HOA rule requiring visitor clearance forms for anyone entering the neighborhood. Dana's own sister was denied entry. That's when Dana's composure turned to focus. She started digging through HOA financials and found something chilling. The HOA was funneling money into a private security firm under fake invoices labeled landscape audits. The cameras weren't for the community. They were for us. Marlene had told the board that Dana was a national security threat, that she was dangerous, trained, and watching them. In truth, it was Marlene who was watching us. We tried contacting the sheriff. They said unless someone was hurt, their hands were tied. So we waited. But paranoia doesn't stop on its own. It festers. Marlene began showing up in person, pounding on our door, taking photos of our car, and shouting about community violations. Once, at midnight, I caught her crouched by our mailbox with a flashlight. When I confronted her, she smiled and said, "Just checking for compliance." Dana said nothing, but that night, she cleaned her firearm. Slowly, silently. It wasn't a threat. It was muscle memory. Then came the day. Everything broke. We were trimming hedges near sunset when Marlene's SUV screeched to a stop in front of our driveway. She jumped out, waving papers, screaming about property lines and violations. Neighbors peeked from their windows, drawn to the noise. Phones ready. Dana stood there, calm, hands at her sides. I told Marlene to leave, but instead, she reached behind her waistband and pulled out a gun. The moment froze. Marlene's hands shook. Her voice cracked. She shouted something about community safety and aimed straight at Dana. I opened my mouth. But before I could speak, Dana moved. In one fluid motion, she stepped forward, deflected Marlene's wrist, and twisted the gun out of her grip. The weapon hit the ground. Gun secured, she said calmly. Threat neutralized. The neighbors gasped at Marlene's power, gone in an instant, because that's when everyone learned who Dana really was. Not just a homeowner, not just a rule breaker, but the former commander of the president's Secret Service detail, and she had just dismantled the HOA's queened out with precision. Police sirens filled the street, blue and red lights reflected off those perfect white fences. A scene no one in Willow Creek ever expected to see. Marlene screamed about entrapment, self-defense, and fake evidence, but the truth was on every camera. Every second of her attack was captured, not just by us, but by her own surveillance. The same system she used to spy on us recorded her downfall. When officers saw Dana's credentials, their entire posture changed. The weapon was cleared, evidence logged, and Marlene was cuffed before she could finish another sentence. Dana just stood there, steady, quiet, professional. No celebration, no anger, just closure. When one officer asked, "Did you know she had a weapon?" Dana replied, "I knew she had a pattern." The weapon was just the final step. Neighbors stared in silence. For months, they'd whispered about Dana, believed the rumors, and now they saw the truth. The only danger here had been the woman running their HOA. Marlene was taken away in handcuffs, still shouting rules no one cared to hear. The following week, the HOA meetings were quiet. The president's seat, empty. Her nameplate, gone. Marlene was charged with assault, harassment, and misuse of community funds. The same neighbors who once avoided eye contact now apologized, embarrassed by their silence. A new board was formed. Transparency rules were introduced. Every camera was taken down. For the first time, Willow Creek felt real, imperfect, but honest. As for Dana, she never spoke of it again. She went back to her garden, tending to her plants as if nothing had happened. But I noticed she still scanned the street before stepping outside. Old instincts don't fade. One evening, as the sky turned orange, I asked her, "Do you regret moving here?" She smiled. "No. You can't fix what's broken if you never see it up close." That line has stayed with me. Because the truth is, these neighborhoods, with their rules and committees, are fragile illusions of order. And sometimes, it only takes one person's obsession to show how easily that illusion shatters. Marlene lost everything: her power, her reputation, her control. But Dana? She gained something far greater: peace. A few weeks later, the HOA sent her a formal letter of apology. She read it once, folded it neatly, and said, "Some things don't need a response." And that was it. No revenge, no victory dance, just quiet dignity. Now, when I see her in the yard, sunlight on her shoulders, hands in the soil, I think about how power isn't about control. It's about restraint. Marlene mistook fear for authority. Dana showed her what real power looks like. Because in the end, the strongest person isn't the one shouting the rules. It's the one who knows when to stay calm, even when someone's pointing a gun at them. Some people mistake control for strength. But real power? It's knowing when to stay calm, even when someone's pointing a gun at you.